standing in a soybean field right now, and what better place than to talk about wheat burn down post-harvest.
Well, it could be, Brian, if you're using some soybeans for a cover crop maybe, but...
Well, hey, here's the reason why I think this is important, because a lot of wheat is going to go to soybeans next year, and we got to be thinking about what we do in our wheat crop and how that affects next year's crop.
Okay, good save, good save. All right, well, you've got your wheat off, and now you've got some weeds that are coming back. So there's a few different ways that you can possibly manage that. One, of course, would just be tillage. You just go out and do tillage, tillage, tillage for the rest of this summer, but you think about it. For several months, are you going to really till up soil, stir it up, have no protection out there from wind and rain erosion?
We just talked about water quality here, and the big thing with water quality is if we can reduce soil erosion, we have a lot better water quality. Okay, so if you do less tillage, you have less soil erosion. You also conserve moisture going into next year. We're not real big on doing a lot of tillage, but again, I mean, it's certainly an option for you.
Okay, so then you look at weed control options and maybe say, you know what, Roundup is pretty cheap. I'll just spray Roundup, but Roundup doesn't have any residual. And if you've got a couple of months here that you've got to protect things, chances are you may have another flush. Now, if you're in a very dry area of the country, you might not. You might not have another flush of weeds that come. But if you do get some rainfall, there could be another flush of weeds that come. And so we get a lot of questions about glyphosate. You know, all right, if I'm going to use it, that's fine, but maybe I need to throw something in there for residual
what are you going to throw
control.
in?
Well, it depends on what you're going to rotate to. And that's one of the things that you were hitting on. When you're going to rotate to soybeans, then you've got a lot of options because there are several products that could be used in the fall before you plant soybeans. One of them that's getting more popular has been Valor. It's a good broadleaf product. It does have some burn down qualities, and it's also got some residual. Now, if you put Valor on in July or early August, pretty much all the Valor will be burned up by the time you get to a frost date. And for next year's soybean crop, there won't be any Valor left to provide
very
weed control.
very little. So yeah, we're just telling you, if you're going to do this summer, you're probably still going to need a residual herbicide next spring in your soybeans. But there are a lot of other products you could use. Some people use atrazine if they're going to go to corn. I'm not real big on that. I don't like to see atrazine applied to the soil because, again, we get back to water quality, and just like nitrates leach, atrazine can leach pretty easily too. So I just don't like to put a lot of atrazine out there. I would try to avoid that if it was me. But there are other things you could do. You could go out there with Harness or Surpass or something. I probably wouldn't do it this early in the season, but you could. Same thing with a Prowl for soybeans. You could put that out there if you wanted to. There are a number of options that you've got. And then, of course, don't forget about good old 2,4-D. You can throw that in there, 2,4-D or Banville at a high rate. You might get a month's worth of residual out of those products in dry areas.
Well, Roundup is pretty cheap right now, and 2,4-D, you know, really isn't that expensive either. And if you're concerned about potentially having some Roundup-resistant weeds, maybe use 2,4-D for one of your burn downs. It will just control broadleaf weeds. It's not going to take out any grasses that may be coming. And coming out of a wheat crop, typically, you know, those grasses are things we're really concerned about, especially the fall ones, or the ones that are going to come, you know, early in the fall, like a cheatgrass, for example, may get started out in your field. It sure is nice to knock that out before you have a crop going in next year.
Now, one other thing we would encourage you to consider to help hold weeds down would be to put in a cover crop. You can get a lot of different benefits out of cover crops depending on the cover crop mix that you choose, but this is something we're doing a lot more of on our farm and something we're seeing a lot more around the country to reduce erosion, to reduce compaction, to increase nutrient levels in the soil, to help conserve more moisture, and again, to help hold weeds down.
You know, that's a lot of choices, Brian, but honestly, when we get into the summer and we're talking about burn down, most guys are thinking about Roundup. So what is the Roundup price going to do? Should they be loading up right now, or is the better time to buy later?
No, if it was me, I'd just buy what I need for today. We believe, and we're not 100% certain of this, but we believe that once we get to fall, there are going to be some fill programs, some load programs, that kind of thing. And we think the price could actually be just a little bit cheaper right after the 1st of September, let's say, than what it is today. So again, buy what you need today or for the next couple, 3 weeks. But if you're going to need some product this fall, I'd wait till fall to buy it. But I would buy a lot this fall because I do think the price is going to go up by December and certainly by next spring.
And of course, you're assuming that commodity prices are going to stay up. Now, if commodity prices would happen to go way down, and we don't really anticipate that, but if it were to happen, then you might see Roundup going down in price. But as long as commodity prices
But how much is it going to go down? I mean, it's super cheap already.
Well, I don't really care how cheap Roundup is, Brian, when we're talking about our weed of the week, because Roundup just isn't very effective on this particular weed. We'll explain what will control it coming up later in the show.